Welcome to the 58th New York Film Festival presented by Film at Lincoln Center. My name is Devika Girish. I'm the assistant editor at Film Comment at Film at Lincoln Center, and I'm also a programmer for the talks section of this year's festival. We're very delighted to welcome you all to today's special conversation. This is the second in our lineup of industry talks, specially curated for our accredited industry attendees. And these talks started yesterday and are going to go on until October 7th, when they'll culminate in a sort of big mixer style roundup talk. So we hope that you'll keep returning throughout this week. These talks will cover a variety of very relevant topics relating to distribution, production, curation, especially during this very strange time that we're all living in of the pandemic. I want to say a couple thank yous to our festival partners, particularly to HBO, who is the presenting partner of all Film at Lincoln Center talks, as well as Topic Studios, which is the sponsor of all our industry events. That being said, I welcome and would like to introduce our moderator for today, Jeremy Kay from Screendaily. This year's festival is really special. This festival has always been really international, but this year we have an extraordinary selection of filmmakers from all over the world represented in the lineup. And Jeremy came up with this amazing talk idea to talk to some of the filmmakers, the producers, about certain aspects of, the production, the distribution specific to filmmakers who are not based in the United States or whose films are coming from other parts of the world. So thank you so much for doing this, Jeremy. Very excited to hear from everyone on the screen. I'll hand off the virtual mic to you now and let you introduce our guests.
Thank you, Devika. It's delighted to be doing this. It's a real pleasure. Thanks very much. And before I introduce the guests, I just want to say that this session, International Films and the Pandemic, will look at how the pandemic is impacting production and distribution. And our filmmakers are going to talk about safety protocols, challenges of getting insurance on productions, and how COVID-19 is really shaping the co-production landscape too, and what distribution opportunities exist. And if there's time, we'll also see if we can touch on the state of cinema reopenings in each of your territories, how our cinemas are opening, how many of them are opening up, and also what national and regional support exists for filmmakers in your territories. We're going to talk for about 45 minutes, and the audience at home, please submit your questions via the Q&A channel, and we'll try and get to as many of those as we can. So without further ado, let's say hi to our panelists. We have Nicolás Pereda, who's the director of Fauna, which is playing in the current section. Hi, Nicolás.
Hi, how are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome. And we also have Ilan Amouyal, who is one of two producers here on the movie Beginning, which plays in the main slate, and that's a film from Georgia. Hi, Ilan.
Hi, Jeremy. Lovely to be here.
Nice to see you. And then we have your producing partner, your business partner, David Zerat, another producer on Beginning. Hi, David.
Hi, how are you?
Great. Good to see you. And we're delighted to have Thirza Cuthand, the director of Extractions from Canada, which is playing in the short and current section. Hi, Thirza.
Hey.
And last but not least, we have Juanse Alamos, producer of There Are Not 36 Ways of Showing a Man Getting on a Horse from Argentina, which is in currents. He joins us from Spain. Hi, Juanse. And I should add that Nicolás's film Fauna is a Mexican-Canada co-production. So guys, let's start off with some just general talking points. I just want to know, first of all, if any of your production on your films that are in the festival was impacted by the pandemic, maybe during production or post-production. Would any of you like to start talking about that and tell us what happened or didn't happen?
I guess I can start. So my film was actually made in like 2019, so like before the pandemic, and it was actually made from like a lot of stock footage. So I think even if I'd made it this year, it probably, because it was made of so much stock footage, it probably wouldn't have been impacted very much. I was shooting a film this year though that we had to keep pushing the like shoot date forward, and then when we actually got to it was a big production, so when we got to the shoot, we had to like go through all these like certifications for like COVID safety and like do testing and stuff, and so it was really involved. And I don't know, the producers were like other people, and I don't know what their issues were with like insurance and stuff, but it was kind of a mess.
So, Thirza, when you talk about the film that you've been shooting, where was production taking place? In Toronto?
In Toronto, yeah. So we were trying to get in because like second wave has already started again. So we were trying to get in before second wave. So it was about like the last weekend in August we shot, I think. And yeah, and then it's just been like, I think things might shut down again here because it's getting bad again. So.
Right. Yeah. Sorry to hear that. And when impacting on production, were you able to keep the cast and keep the financing in place, but did any elements fall out?
The financing stayed in place. I think the costs went up though, and I'm not the producer for that one short, so I don't know the exact budget figures, but I know like our costs were going up for like reasons related to COVID.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Thirza. Guys, anybody else like to share some experiences?
Maybe we can share ours. So we did shoot the film before the COVID pandemic happened. We shot in Georgia between September and November of 2019. But when the pandemic happened, we were in post-production. The post-production happened in Mexico City and in a little town next to Mexico. And at the time, we had our Georgian director who was in Mexico with our French editor and also our American DP. So our priority for us was first the safety of our crew over there and to make sure that they were comfortable staying in Mexico. And we cannot say that we were really financially impacted by COVID, even though we extended a little bit the post-production. So that's how maybe we got impacted financially. But we were lucky to shoot before the pandemic happened.
Absolutely, yeah.
Did you do post-production in Tepoztlan?
Yes. We did the post-production in Tepoztlan at Carlos Regadas, yes.
I lived there half the time of my life. So
Yeah, you do?
it's so funny. Anyway.
All right.
So as you know,
we must know that people come.
Yeah.
And as you know, it's a good place to be during COVID because it's very secluded. But a question came as far as comfort, and so came the question whether to put a hold on post-production or to continue post-production. And that was a big question because obviously that would have changed completely the trajectory of the film. But as Nicolás knows, Tepoztlan is secluded. It's a good place to be. You don't see a lot of people in the place where we did post-production. So they decided to stay based on their comfort, and we're happy that we did that.
And that's the post-production facility you're talking about in Mexico City, yes?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like a good place to be. Okay. Nicolás, do you have anything to share?
I had a strange experience because I had shot in 2019, and then I managed to do color correction in February, but then the sound was being done in New York City, and then I wasn't able to travel there. So all the sound post-production I did sort of remotely. This Kevin, the sound mixer, was sending me files, and then I will listen to them. And because I don't have a proper setup, it was kind of messy. I don't have a proper setup, so I kept changing small speakers and headphones and trying to hear it with different things to see if it sounded okay with every difference. But I've never actually heard the film in a movie theater yet, which is kind of strange.
Yeah, that must be strange. And that whole sound process, Nicolás, were you doing that live with your associates? They were sending you files, you were listening, or overnight?
I mean, he would mix for a day, and then he would send me the files either already in like a 5.1 eventually, and then I would listen to them at home and then type some notes and send them back. And yeah, we did it like that. I mean, I still don't know exactly how it sounds, so that's kind of a strange thing. But the film is quite simple in its sound design as well. So yeah. I kind of know how it should sound by now. I've listened to it in different with different setups, and I have a small sort of cheap 5.1 sort of home theater system at home, and it sounds okay. So.
Yeah, but as you say, you haven't got to hear it yet in a cinema, in a theater, and we'll come on to cinemas shortly. Thanks for that, Nicolás. Juanse, do you have anything to share? Any impact of the pandemic?
Yes, of course. I mean, The Hours is a really particular film. It didn't imply shooting. It's all with archives. And when the pandemic started in Argentina, we had already finished the final cut of the film, and we were up to start the image and sound post-production. Well, actually, we plan to do these processes in Universidad del Cine in Buenos Aires. Nicolás, the director, and I are graduated from this university, and this place has the characteristic that helps its students and its graduated with post-production processes. Our intention was to do these processes in the university, but the university was closed with the beginning of the pandemic in Argentina, and well, we have to change our plans, go to private studios, and well, it did modify the budget that we were thinking for the film, but it wasn't such a big problem, and well, we could finish in time for this premiere at New York.
Good. So you made it in time, but the whole process of shifting where you were doing post, did you lose weeks, days? I mean, how much time was lost with all that?
Yes. Actually, we put at the beginning we put a pause at these processes. We hadn't a deadline to present the film, so at the beginning we tried to just wait that the pandemic finish and that the university opens its door again. Obviously, it didn't happen yet, and when the film was selected for New York, well, we restarted the processes in order to achieve this new deadline. And of course, this had an implication in the university, given this process for free because we are graduated from the university, and now without this option, well, we have to reschedule the budget and manage to complete the film in private studios.
Okay, great. And look, I want to come on a little bit more to protocols, but something I should have actually asked you all at the beginning is, can you just tell us briefly in a line or two what your films are about? Juanse, we were just talking to you. Can you just summarize the film for us?
Yes, it's kind of weird to summarize it, but yes, this film has two parts. The origin of the film is a phrase, a Raoul Walsh phrase that is, there are not 36 ways of showing a man getting on a horse. That's the title of our film, and these two parts of the film. The film is based in a first part that is different fragments of Raoul Walsh films when people get on a horse or get into a room, but because that's the other version of the phrase. And the second part is an investigation about the origin of this phrase that maybe Raoul Walsh said or not.
Great, thank you. Ilan or David, can you just tell us quickly about the beginning?
Absolutely. So our film centers around Yana, a woman who's in the middle of a marital and existential crisis. And she's married to the leader of the Jehovah's Witness community in a small rural town in Georgia. And as their community gets attacked by a group of extremists, she has to face and make sense of her own desires.
Great, thank you. These will sound great. Thirza, briefly about your short?
Yeah, it's called Extractions, and basically it's about the extractive industry in Canada, which is sort of part of colonialism, and how they've also been sort of taking Indigenous children into care and adopting them out, and how it's kind of this weird scam going on where they like actually get like quite a lot of money from taking Indigenous children and like putting them into care. So I'm paralleling that with the extractive industry in Canada, and then also talking about my own experiences getting my eggs retrieved and frozen a couple years ago. So yeah.
Sounds intriguing. Thank you. And Nicolás, Fauna.
The film is also in two parts, like Juanse's film, but the first part is kind of a family reunion of two middle-aged son and daughter who visit the parents and the tensions between them. And the second part is a reflection on narco violence in the mining town where the children come to visit. So it's kind of how the personal lives and mundane everyday lives of Mexicans have been impacted either directly, like the parents' village, or sort of subconsciously, or through what we watch, so entertainment and so on, how the violence in Mexico has impacted people. So it's like it's a very simple film about family dynamics that has this sort of weight of violence always lurking around it, but never really explicit.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, they all sound cool. They sound great. Now, I want to just give the audience an idea of what it is like to shoot under protocols. And Thirza, you talked about this at the beginning. Can you just paint a picture of what it's like to shoot under COVID protocols? I mean, what are they? How does it work?
Yeah, I mean, basically, well, first, like everybody was like expected to test before they came to set, and then we all had to wear PPE, except for like the only people who weren't wearing PPE were the actors. But even then, it was only while they were doing a take. So as soon as the take was like over, then they would like put their masks on and everything again. There's like, we shot in a car, and there's like rules about like who could be in the car. Like we tried to do all of the driving shots to have the like cameras attached to the car, so the camera person wasn't actually in the car most of the time. Yeah, it was a lot. We all had to like stand 6 feet away from each other. I mean, after a certain point, it gets hard to follow those protocols, because I mean, people are just such a social creature that I think you naturally gravitate towards being close to each other. But yeah, it was weird. It's definitely a weird thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for that. Now, to the rest of our panelists, you've spoken about how the COVID has impacted perhaps post-production, but are you currently in the process of setting up your next films? And if so, what are you doing about the protocols? Can you tell us a little bit about that, any of you? Or is it too soon?
No, it's a little, for me, I'm going to speak a little bit for us, but it's a little bit soon to talk about that. We don't have anything that's imminently going into production, but what I know is that we have things in development and things we want to start soon. The question is, I mean, depending on every country, the protocols are different, but to speak to the United States, where we're partially based, when we're on an economy that's a film that needs a lot of financial support and that's on a small budget, if you look at all the compliances and each union's compliance towards the COVID, which is understandable for the safety of the crew and everyone who's working on the film, it also adds a pretty big portion of the budget headed towards safety. And if you're thinking, I don't have the exact numbers, but from what I hear from my colleagues, it's around 20, 25, sometimes even 30% increase in the budget. There is a question about the economical sense of pursuing a certain smaller type of films, at least like the one we just done.
That's extraordinary. So about 20 to 30% increase in the budget to accommodate the safety protocols on productions.
Safety protocols, the testing, all of the things are very costly. And when you have to do it regularly, depending on the number of shooting days, it quickly adds up, even if it's small sums, but incrementally, it quickly adds up.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about distribution. your films are played. Some of your films are played. They're all playing at New York Film Festival. They played in other festivals. What's the situation with distribution for you now? I mean, Nicolás, you said you haven't yet seen your film in the theatre. Maybe that's true of many of you or all of you. Do you already have distribution, say, in your own territories, or is that a process that's going on now? Nicolás, why don't we start with you and Fauna?
So I have a distributor in Mexico who has the film, and so the film will be distributed, and theaters opened in Mexico already in a strange format, so like with social distancing. But I don't think it's a good time for the film to be released anyway. Not because my films are fairly small in any sense, so I don't expect like lots of people either way, with pandemic or without. But independently of that, I just don't feel like telling my friends all to go see my movie or anything like that. It's kind of a strange moment to do I enjoy when the premiere of the film happens and we have a small party or whatever. So I would rather just wait a little bit. So I know there's some things going on online, and so there might be some partnerships to have distribution online. The film is also going to be released in Austria, and I don't know when that will happen, but I'm sure. I mean, I think different countries obviously are in different situations, and I think in Austria they might be able to open theaters sooner. I know that the Festival de Biennale is happening soon. I think it's happening sometime this month, and it's only happening. They don't have an online component for that festival, so that means that for example, there it'll be no problem. But in Mexico, I'm just gonna hold off the distribution till probably next year sometime in the middle of next year.
Okay, but Nicolás, to go back, you said you do have distribution in Mexico, yes, but you just want to wait. Yeah, so
the distributors of the film are the people that always distribute my films, so I didn't even have to. It was not a big complication because it's kind of a partnership that has been going on for many years now. But I do think that selling the film seems a little bit harder. Especially, I mean, I think it's probably very different for some of the other films here, in the sense that it's not like I'm not expecting to sell my film to many territories. Probably I'll just get like 5 or 6 countries, or the usual for my films. But it is a bit harder now than it would be in a different time to sell the film.
Yeah, and you say you're prepared to wait. I want to come to the other panelists with the same question. But so if I'm reading you correctly, you'd like to wait maybe for a theatrical release when it's safe to go back to the cinemas. Did you have the opportunity to release the film digitally? And you choose not to do that? You'd rather have it in the cinema, is that right?
At least first in Mexico, yes, because I mean, there's not going to be a huge audience in Mexico anyway, and so if we release it online first, we might have almost very little left in person. So, but at the end of the day, it's not my decision exactly, right? Like, I mean, and I try not to think about those things too much. So, like, the distributor will contact me and tell me their plans, and we'll come to an agreement. But at the end of the day, I'll just do whatever they want, I think.
Yeah. Juanse, what's the situation with your film and distribution?
Yes, well, in our case, no one at the team has seen the movie in a movie theater. Well, of course, New York is its world premiere, and it's digitally in our case. We have already some other festivals interested in the film, but we don't have the confirmation if these festivals will be online or in a presential way. I think the virtual way has some pros and some contras. For example, in the case of New York, well, now the film has a bigger territory to reach. I mean, I have, for example, a friend in Chicago that has seen the movie in Chicago, and he had never seen a movie in the New York Film Festival. That's something nice. But well, of course, it's not the same to watch the movie in a computer or his TV than in the movie theater, of course. And right now in Argentina, the cinemas are closed, and we don't know when they will open. We hope that our film will be shown personally in the future, but it's really an uncertainty right now. And that's it. And in our case, this is a really small movie, and the distribution, well, is made by ourselves and in a really particular and homemade way, if you want to say so. At the moment, we are just thinking in a festival path, and well, maybe later, if the theaters come back, well, an Argentinian premiere here. But here not, I'm in Spain, but an Argentinian premiere in Argentina, of course.
Yes, yes. Thanks, Juanse. And Ilan and David, tell us about the beginning and the distribution situation.
Yeah, we have a big festival run right now. We went to Toronto. We just had a nice run in San Sebastian. Now we're in New York, and then we're heading to Busan and other festivals. So we get offers, and I think the film is going to sell in countries. We just wait for the end of the festival runs, and then we'll see. It's true that the situation right now is not the most at our advantage or anybody's advantage, but we're trying to take as much as possible out of this situation.
And
Yes.
maybe to add to that, we didn't pre-sell the film to distributors, and it's specific because our own country is not the country where the film was shot or where the director is from. But we working hand in hand with a foreign sales company, Well Bunch, who's doing an amazing job. But right now, we don't want to rush any decisions, and we know the film will be distributed in certain territories. But the situation is so unprecedented, as much for distributors as it is for foreign sales company, that there is some uncertainties for the market in general and any kind of films. So yeah, we're taking our time because there are specific partners in specific territories that we want to work with, and some we're already closing, but we are staying a little bit on the quiet side about everything at this moment.
Yeah, okay. And Thirza, what's the situation with your film?
Yeah, I mean, it's already been like playing in a lot of festivals for a while now. So it's and I have a distributor here in Toronto, and then another one in Berlin. So it's just, yeah, it's just kind of disappointing when you have a film go out and then realize everybody has to watch it from home because they're not really like doing in-person festivals anymore. I mean, I know there are some places that are, but yeah, it's been different for sure. Yeah, I mean, like the last big festival I went to with it was Berlinale in February, and that was like we could see the pandemic was coming, and then and ever since then I've just been like basically stuck at home and watching festivals from my computer in my living room, and it's a very different festival going experience this year for sure.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And Berlinale was the last festival I went to too, the last time I traveled actually. But, you know, we've all touched on the ability of these virtual festivals now to reach audiences. I mean, Juanse, you said that your friend in Chicago has seen your film. So, you know, let's just talk a little bit about the value of New York Film Festival as a virtual event and others like it. I mean, do you feel it is a benefit to you to get the film seen by a wider audience than might have been had it been only people who are physically attending the event? You're reaching a wider audience through these virtual events. Would you agree?
Yes, I mean, it's relative because there is a limited number of people who can see the film virtually. But yes, well, geographically, there is a bigger audience, of course. I also think it's interesting. Today I was at the film festival in Biarritz, and I was talking with some friends there, and we were talking about that the New York Film Festival is a particular case because they have split their program in virtual films, I mean virtual exhibition, and I don't know how you call them, car theaters, movie car theaters. I don't know the specific name.
Drive-ins?
Excuse me?
The drive-in cinemas, you sit in your car?
That's right. That is really particular because we came from San Sebastian, that was all presentially. Then there are other festivals that make and split like virtual and some presence for the local people or for the industry or for the press. I think it's quite particular idea that the festival is doing there in New York. In our case, I think that our film, this is really personal, but I think that the first part of the film gains a little bit with the virtual format, but the second part it gets a little affected. I mean, I think that the second part it will be better to be seen in the dark in a movie theater.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about cinemas in each of your territories. I mean, Juanse, you've spoken, you said in Argentina, no cinemas are open right now, right?
No, yes, that's right.
Is there any idea of when that might happen? I know it's so treacherous to guess and predict. We can't do that, but any hint from the authorities when it might open?
Not quite sure. Well, the drive-in cinemas arrived to Argentina. They didn't exist before, or they weren't something common. But now the situation in Argentina is quite difficult. The quarantine has been really, really long. It started in March and it continues a little bit more open, but it continues. And now and not only the cinema, the whole cultural industry in Argentina, I mean theater, dance, and all the culture in general is really affected by the pandemic, and there is no an horizon approaching.
Yeah. And Thirza, what about Toronto, Ontario, Canada? What's the situation there?
Yeah, I think there are some theaters that are open. I'm more of a like careful, suspicious person, so I haven't really been going to them. But I have seen some people say like, "Oh, my movie's in this theater, you should go see it." But I mean, I think they have really strict rules around it, like only a certain amount of people. I don't know. I still kind of don't think that's really safe either, though. So, which is why I'm not going. So yeah, I mean, it's true. These online festivals are like the only way I'm seeing cinema, and like also all the streaming sites right now.
I think Jeremy froze.
Yeah, we lost Jeremy.
Yes.
Should we moderate for Jeremy?
Can you hear me? I am here, I promise you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yes.
Thirza, thank you. I could not hear all that, but did you have anything else to add, or did you finish that answer?
I'm done.
Okay. Ilan and David, what's the situation where you are with cinemas reopening? And of course, we know there's always a risk of a second wave and surges and COVID here and there.
Yes, there is this risk of a second wave. Basically, in France, cinemas reopened around mid-July, I guess. The big film to open cinema was obviously Tenet.
Yeah.
It's the leader as a box office in France right now, but I think they did not reach the audience they wanted to reach. Some distributors tried to take advantage of the situation by releasing in France in theaters movies they would not have released in theaters that would have been directly to VOD or DVDs or whatever. Yeah. But no, the audience is not there yet. People are shy to go back, and people are also very afraid that we're going to reconfine pretty soon. We don't know anything about that, but people are afraid.
Yeah. That sounds pretty consistent. And Nicolás, we know that, Latin America is really struggling, as is much of the world. But cinemas have opened in Mexico in places. Is that right?
Yeah.
But not. Yeah. Do you find that are they all open, or just only a few cinema chains?
The only reason I know that they're open is because I kind of have followed my distributors put like out email news about where their films are going around, and I'm in their list. But I haven't been to the movie theaters, and I actually don't know how well it's going, or how many people are going, or much about it. But I think the situation must not be that different than in the way David explained in France. Like, you know, people it's probably gonna there's a big possibility that the theaters are gonna close again soon, and I don't think people are going a lot to the movie theaters right now anyway.
Yeah,
and it's strange because Mexico actually has the biggest cinematheque in the world with the most attendees in the world. It's like an enormous cinematheque with 10 screens that is all the time full. So it's actually like it's become like Mexico City a vibrant place for art cinema. But yeah, but who knows what's going to happen? Because they opened, but they opened and people are not going, I assume.
Yeah, it's a beautiful building, the Cinematheque. And look, you know, for me, I write about the United States and Latin America and Canada. And, you know, even yesterday, there was a call, an SOS signal from Hollywood, from the Cinema Association, NATO, and from filmmakers and the Directors Guild and the Motion Picture Association, calling on Congress in the US for more support from the stimulus package. And that's being debated now in Congress. But tell us, what kind of support are national or regional governments giving filmmakers like yourselves in your countries? You know, it's not something that happens in the US per se, but it does happen internationally. Nicolás, can I just come back to you with Mexico? Is there anything IMCINE or other organizations are able to do to support filmmakers, especially now in this difficult time?
I'm actually in a unique position because I'm dual citizen of Canada and Mexico, and being able to see both sort of governments in relation to art support right now. I mean, obviously, it's impossible to compare the economies of these two countries and the general situation of these two countries, but it's clear to me that, you know, Canada is I mean, at least from my point of view, maybe Thirza will disagree, but I find that it's incredibly supportive of the arts compared to many countries. Perhaps not France, which I hear it's super supportive as well. But Mexico right now is going through a very complicated political period. In many ways, it's very uncertain times, and it's independent of the pandemic. We have a government it's a new government. I was quite hopeful about this government. I'm still somewhat hopeful, even though most of my friends in the artistic community are totally disappointed with the current government, which is the first time we have a left-wing government, which people here would say it's not a real left-wing government. But anyway, it's a very complicated political situation that is beyond the pandemic. And the current government is not really, the priority of the current government is not the arts or sciences or the academic world or any of those things at all. Yeah. Which for a country like Mexico perhaps is not a problem in the short term. But anyway, it's a kind of a very complicated, longer debate that is beyond the pandemic. But what's for sure is that they just cut, it's weird, but they cut the film funding. The big fund from IMCINE just disappeared last week. And it's so that they could fund pandemic related issues. But there doesn't seem to be, it's unclear whether the funding is going to come back. It's unclear whether they're using the pandemic as an excuse to just delete film funds, well, not altogether, but like one of the main film funds for cinema. But I don't think that's going to be the case, because artists complain and then the government gives back, as opposed to other more vulnerable populations that the government takes away, but then, you know, they don't have the power to go out in the streets and gain support and so on. Anyway, sorry for my political rant, but that's the situation right now.
Yeah, thank you. No, please do. It's important. And you mentioned Canada, so that brings me to you, Thirza. You know, as a filmmaker, what is the support that you can benefit from in Canada or Ontario?
Yeah, in Ontario, I mean, there's like 3 levels of funding that I can personally access as an artist, and like there's like I got some money from Toronto Art Council that was just kind of like this emergency for artists money. It was not like a lot of money, but it was like, you know, I paid rent for a while. There's like I think Telefilm just brought out a thing where if like your film shoot gets canceled, you get like this big package of money to like sort of cover your costs. There's been like quite a bit of like trying to sort of help people with sort of emergency funds and things like that, and like topping up budgets. I think also we were lucky that we had the CERB, so we got like $2,000 a month if you qualified and you had like lost some income. That's ended now, but they're bringing in like a different program that freelancers can also like take advantage of. So there's like, I mean, it's been rough, but like I feel kind of confident in the government not letting us just like drown in debt and sadness. So yeah.
Yeah, well, that's encouraging. And then, David, Ilan, tell us a bit about the support there. We know France is, of course, a huge cinephile country.
Yeah, so the good thing, one good thing we can give to France is that they've always put culture at the center of their politics and the policy, and that's been a constant in France. And right now, it's not an exception. They just announced, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, a new envelope dedicated to cinema of, if I'm not mistaken, 225 million euro. So they're trying to really support the industry as much as they can, and an institution like the National Center of Cinema. But like in every country, and like you were saying in the United States, everyone needs support, because it's not only the producer, the actors, the cinemas, the distributors. Everyone really needs to be supported in these difficult times. And there's a lot of conversation about some maybe more obvious industries that are suffering right now. Services, restoration, hotels, but culture and cinema is one also that needs support, and that brings also the soul of each country, and is a good representation of what's going on. So we've been lucky with that, but our government has supported culture and cinema specifically.
Yeah. So again, that's okay. So that's encouraging. Juanse, would you like to add a comment to that?
Yes, of course. Well, I have a lot to say about this point, but as you see, my English is quite limited, so I'll be brief. Our situation is more similar to the situation in Mexico, as Nico said. There have been, as I said before, there is a general crisis, not only in cinema, but the whole cultural industry in Argentina. There have been some helps from the state. There has been the National Arts Fund that always give grants to artists and all this stuff. And this year, well, they gave help to different artists that had been impacted by the crisis, but these were really little helps. And there also has been help from Netflix, also specifically for the cinematographic and television industry. That of course we are thankful with it, but in my opinion, and this is my opinion, it also shows the incapacity of the state to cover this gap and this problem that the cultural workers are living right now in Argentina. I mean, well, Argentina is having quite of problems before the pandemic in the economical aspects, and well, this new hit was quite a problem for the government. So I think it's not only that I couldn't say that the Argentinian state doesn't care, but doesn't care for the culture or the cinema, but I think the government hasn't got the resources to give some help or a significant help to the industry or its workers.
Yeah, thank you for that, Juanse. And by the way, your English is fine. We all understand you.
Thank you.
It's a lot better than my Spanish. You don't want to hear that. Look, we talked a little bit about government support, and one way that international, by which I mean films that are not from the United States, international films get made is through co-productions, countries partnering up. And I wanted to get your thoughts on how the pandemic might be affecting co-productions and the ease with which you can collaborate with other countries. We've heard from you about conducting some sound processes remotely, having to have a certain post-production facility bookings cancelled and find other places. How is this affecting co-production, do you think, or how might it affect co-productions? If any of you will want to speak to that.
That's a big question mark because, for instance, on this film, we did a co-production with Georgia and France, and we had a wonderful Georgian co-producer, and we got supported by Georgia's government as well. The big question is each country will have, related to the previous question, different policies as far as supporting their own cinema and supporting their own center or equivalent of cinemas that finance films. So probably we're gonna find, I don't know, but that's just an opinion, but probably we're gonna see some of them disappear or being completely underfinanced and completely change their approach to the projects that they choose. And that can create a big question mark around the treaties and which countries will have a logical collaboration. At the same time, it might be reinforced on certain co-productions because more countries will need more support, and the co-production might be a tool to increase financing like it has been. So kind of just like you, we're questioning what's going to happen, and we hope that this tool and this coming together of countries will continue because it's a beautiful tool to help some films which are difficult to finance to exist and that deserve to exist.
Yeah, absolutely. Nicolás, Fauna, am I right in saying that's a Mexico-Canada co-production?
Yes, I mean, most of my films are co-productions in one way or another, but they're not co-productions in, I think, they're not complex co-productions. I would say, like the way Ilan was talking about it, in the sense that, like, my co-productions with Canada are not with Telefilm, which is the main state institute of film in Canada, but I just get Canada Council grants from, so these are like grants for artists that Canada has, and those grants are they have less restrictions and you can move them around. It's a lot, they're a lot easier to handle. So like I don't need to have a certain amount of Canadians on the cast or on the crew or anything like that. I mean, I just pitch a project, and if I get funded, I use that. I can pay people from different nationalities without many problems. I don't have to spend the money in a specific region. It's similar as when getting funds, for example, from Holland, but not from the country, but from like Hubert Ball's fund or something like that. When once you get the funds, you kind of distribute them your own way. So the way I've done co-productions in the past, and I've had something with France as well before, but they had like a fund called, it was a while ago, something like Fund Sud or something like that.
Swiss.
Yeah, that's Swiss, yeah.
Vision
So
Sud.
it was not that one. It was something. No, it was Ile-de-France.
Ile-de-France.
Right. Region.
It was like a regional Ile-de-France fund that I got, but then also
over there actually.
And that one, it was not that much money, so I ended up doing some post-production in France. I remember, but it was not as complex. I remember it was not as complex as creating. I had to partner with a company. That's true. Maybe that one was harder. Anyway, but yeah, I think I'm used to doing these co-productions that are not super complex, and I don't think for me it will be too it will alter too much the way I make work. Also, but considering these films are all relatively cheap, like under $150,000 or so.
You don't make cheap films, Nicolás. Maybe low budget.
I'm sorry?
You don't make cheap films. Maybe low budget.
They're also cheap. Okay.
But thank you for that. Look, we've got a few minutes left. Before I go on to the next question, Thirza and Juanse, if you wanted to talk about co-productions, please do. Otherwise, we'll just address something else.
I don't have like any experience with co-productions. So, yeah.
No problem. So, guys,
No, the only thing I can say, oh, sorry.
Please go ahead, Juanse.
No, yes. No, I haven't so much experience with international co-production neither. The only thing that I have to add in the Argentinian case is that, and this is comes from before the pandemic, is that the Argentinian funds, the institution, the National Cinematography Institution from Argentina, and the other regional funds are getting smaller and smaller during the pass of time. This is also due to the economic crisis, the inflation, the devaluation of the peso, Argentinian peso, and well, it is it's really important to achieve international co-production right now in Argentina. The Argentinian funding is sometimes it's not enough to complete the films in Argentina.
Yeah,
that's my case here.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more we can talk about on each of these things, but look, we've got a few minutes left. I just wanted to throw out a general thing to each of you. You know better than anybody that about the rise of the streaming platforms, the subscription video on demand platforms, and the threat to theatrical exhibition that is happening. Certainly these companies, all the cinemas are hurting. They've been closed for many, many months during the lockdown in most territories, and they're reopening. But as you've said, people are not that confident about going back. As you look ahead in your careers, does that mean that you have to rethink how you make your films, or rather rethink distribution? Will you continue to make films hoping for a theatrical release for your films, or are you also happy to work with the streaming platforms?
I think personally, like I like it. There's, I mean, theatrical releases are always really exciting because, you have like the whole communities there and everything. I mean, I think the streaming platform's just like a modern thing that we live with now. And I think that's just the way most people see films now, especially. And like, I think that's where you get the wider audience now. But I mean, I really do hope that like theatrical releases like always are around, and I don't really want to see like cinemas die, but I know it's been really hard to see, like major cineplexes here is like not doing very well because of the pandemic, and it's like, I just don't want them to go away. I want them both to like be viable.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge question. Anybody else want to touch on that, or we can move on to something else for the last minute or two?
I would just say that there are certain films, like for instance, the one we just made with Dea, that are designed to be experienced in theater, that are conceived, thought, and written for the big screen, and those need to exist in a theater. Then streamers, it's not a question really that streamers are the new biggest player in the world of cinema, and I'm sure that some projects are very adapted to them. And if you ask the question, do I want to work eventually with a streamer? I hope I will.
Yeah, and we wish you all the best for that, guys. I've got a question from the audience here. We've got a few, but I think we've got a great question from Lydia Ogwang, and she asks, curious to know if at all, has the pandemic affected your artistic choices when you've been developing future projects? Would you be more likely to lean on archival footage or include fewer characters in your future work? Anybody want to talk about that? David? Ilan?
For us, not really, because once again, everything we're working on right now is in development, pretty much. And I don't think that we're going to look at things that way. Maybe if we cannot do certain projects due to the pandemic, we're maybe going to postpone them or something like that. But as of right now, that's not an issue for us.
I actually, because I've been living for the last only 2 weeks or so in Mexico. I'm generally based in California, but I came to Mexico because of the pandemic and to be in the countryside in this town in Tepoztlan. So I thought about making a small film. And for the first time, I thought I could build a small hut and then just cast 2 actors that I work with a lot, and then we'll just be, and then I would shoot the film. Like I haven't done cinematography in, I mean, I rarely do cinematography. I've done it only a couple times. And then my wife is a filmmaker as well, and then she said she could do sound, and then we would make a film, just kind of 2 actors and my wife and myself in the backyard, which is kind of big because it's in the countryside, and we'll just build a small house there and shoot inside. And I thought it was a way to, to be able to do something with our time, because the days are a bit longer than usual, and we cannot see friends, we cannot go out to do stuff. So yeah, in this sense, if I end up doing this, it will be completely because of the current situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Juanse, anything to say? Thoughts on that?
Yes, well, of course. Actually, we are planning shooting for next South American summer. And well, in the beginning, this film will actually be based in 2018 in Argentina, but this is a really small film. And we know that we won't control all the set and the environment when we shoot in stereos. So
Juanse, I'm so sorry. Juanse,
yes.
I'm so sorry to do this to you, but we've run out of time. We'd love to hear more from you.
No.
But in the meantime,
no, just want to say that we will use masks. We have to use the context, use the mask. I mean, we have to show that this is happening and not to avoid it. That's my opinion about the films in the future.
we wish you all the best with your future work and the current films. Thirza, Ilan, David, Juanse, Nicolás, thank you very much, and thanks to New York Film Festival for this session. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you to our audience from home. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.